It's Wellness Wednesdays. It's Wellness Wednesdays, and I am not totally well. I'm still sick, so pardon if I cough. But this is a bit different. I'm actually referring to a news story because, yikes, this Ashley Johnson thing. And I know some people think we shouldn't talk about it because um, it was released without her against her wishes. I don't understand this part of the story, and I haven't been able to find out. Um, Either his side released it, not sure why. Her side released it again. That suggests that she's got some people close to her who shouldn't be. Um, or someone at the court leaked it. Either way, this is very strange that these details got into the public because the record of the restraining order would be public. Those are public record. Anybody can search them, which is what I first thought when this story broke. But the fact that this is apparently against what she wanted is kind of messed up. And the fact that it broke apparently on a site called theblast.com, which I'd never heard of before this. But since then, it's broken containment. And this is why I'm talking about it. Because, I mean, Yahoo News, The Daily Beast, The Last of Us, all these different sites have referenced the blast. They've done no official, additional reporting. They just copy what the original article said. So we are assuming at this point that it's true. We don't know for sure that it's true. But I want to talk about what's in it because the stuff the media has focused on, I don't think is the most chilling part. And I want to talk about this from a mental health perspective because, people go through this stuff who aren't famous and don't get the outpouring of support. And the fact that she doesn't want to talk about it she doesn't have to talk about it, but she didn't want people to know. I want to talk about that, right? So if you enjoy this sort of content, a non-sensational take on this stuff, it's not drama, it's actually stuff that can help inform things, help support this channel, become a monthly patron, patreon.com/Leanna K, or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it, ko-fi.com/Leanna K. I will admit that some of the conversations I've had with other people working through their own, situations where they had to get out of an abusive relationship are also inspiring me to talk about this. And there are different types of abuse, and often the physical and sexual abuse is the thing that gets the most attention, right? Violence and all that stuff. But people who have survived abuse, yeah, that stuff's awful, but the stuff that allowed that to happen is the emotional abuse, the coercive control, the financial abuse. And this particular story hits on all cylinders that way. And I will say it's disgusting, the people who are accusing her of making it up or being another Amber Heard, or there's absolutely no reason. I mean, apparently she didn't even want this becoming public. Um, but there's absolutely no reason for her to make something up for attention. It seems like she filed for the protective order because he was attempting to extort her. And some people might say, well, that doesn't make any sense. But when you're in these situations that are not cut and dried, you have to use imperfect tools. And it sounds like she just wanted the menacing to stop, right? Trying to extort $150,000 from her. That's not nothing. You know, there are a lot of questions we could ask, but let's not. Apparently, you know, use of narcotics, all that stuff. I don't want to focus on the typical basic Becky details that the other things have jumped on. I know that's really sizzly. I know that's what people want to hear, and I am not, you know, compelled. The thing that absolutely chilled me was the using internet and access to things like the internet, electronic devices, cameras, you know, cutting off contact with her family through those devices, so on and so forth. That's the part where I sat up and took notice. It looks like that was part of what made her take the action she did. That and there's actual dates, you know, April 21st, 2023. He locked her out of, I guess we have to say allegedly, locked her out of the internet, access to all devices. Before that, a few weeks or so, he blocked her out of the internet, access to all devices, including cameras. Her mother, family, friends, others contacted out of fear for my life. She vacated her home and stayed with her family. There was some other creepy stuff, but that detail, I was like, okay, someone who is setting something up, you don't see that. You see kind of very vague things, but when there's specific dates of when somebody locked you out of all the, you know, the, after it appears they broke it up because the crazy stuff with the weapons and stuff, the airsoft guns in the bag happened 2 weeks before. Well, she was, let me check. I want to get this right. But, yeah, when he was leaving, March 15th in the presence of the LAPD, didn't take his, you know, ammo case and bag with him. She opened it up. Not going to repeat. It's triggering. But do you notice he was led away in the presence of the police in the home that she owns? That's something that can be substantiated. That wouldn't be put there if they were trying to, you know, pull one. And we shouldn't even have to go, here's why I believe her. Because I believe you believe somebody until red flags start to show, because most people don't lie about this stuff. But that cutting off devices or spying on people through devices, keyloggers, things like that, looking through your phone, that kind of stuff, that is bad stuff that people of all genders do to their partners, and I don't think it's taken seriously enough. Because the problem with that behavior is if you go looking for stuff, you will likely find stuff. And if, well, I think he's cheating on me. Okay, so have the conversation. And if you really don't trust him that much, why are you with him? And I'm not saying there aren't good reasons. It's just ask yourself the question. Going through his phone or going through her phone or putting a keylogger on their computer is not the way to handle it. And people stay in these relationships. And of course, he was also another critical role member that likely influenced her decision to be quieter about this. And I totally get not wanting this to be public because she doesn't want to deal with the predictable horror that comes with this ending up on the internet, especially with some of the toxicity surrounding The Last of Us and women. And that's not her fault. But what an awful place to be in. You're trying to get your sense of safety, privacy, and security back. And not only does this guy sound totally, scary and controlling, but now it's the whole public scrutiny element and the fact that someone leaked this. And so now it's who else can I trust? I don't know how this website got this document. It'll probably come out eventually. We may never find out, but somebody knows. But that's when you're getting out of a controlling situation, that's a real violation. And I imagine she's very upset that this is public now. Again, I decided to talk about it only after it completely broke containment because, of course, she was on. If it had just been a video game, I guarantee you it wouldn't have been as big a story. But because she was in the HBO show, now it's entertainment news, which is seen as a very different thing, TM, than gaming news. Isn't that sad and disgusting on numerous levels? And I don't understand why people assume their first position is they assume people lie about this stuff. Obviously, it's bitterness, what happened to them, or they're just terrible people, or both. I don't know, but we know most people don't lie about this stuff. Now, it doesn't sound like he was ever violent, like physically violent to her, but he did destroy property. He called her a bunch of names. And this is the next part I want to get into. Because, being around people who are destructive and use abusive language. There's a lot more subjectivity to this because of what people are raised to believe is normal. I set a very, very high bar for this kind of stuff. There are lines, and It's Not Therapy this week, I talk about self-worth and how, my self-worth means there's just places I won't go in social media fights or any other fight. This whole thing of calling everybody who disagrees with you a groomer, it's just wrong. Because if we since the definition of what a groomer is starting to shift, then more kids are going to get harmed because the waters are so muddied. That really bothers me. It's easy to go, it's just the latest, libtard, pedo. The pedophile thing bothers me too. And the reason it bothers me is, one, it's cheapening the whole thing, and we're going away from educating people on what to look for in terms of an inappropriate relationship that could be a precursor to abuse. And also, they don't actually believe it. They're just saying it because they think it's funny to call someone something that terrible. And this is where the is it abuse thing becomes so thorny. And, I've been having some heartbreaking conversations with people who were in, fairly long-term relationships with abusive people, but they're not ready to call it abuse yet. And that has to be up to them. Because this stuff really messes with you. And some people just have a potty mouth. I used to. I stopped it because various reasons. One is, when you do radio, you have to not let words slip. Yeah, so you got to train yourself out of that. But also, I just thought it cheapened my arguments. And on Twitch, I don't want certain words to accidentally slip out. Nothing racial or anything like that. Just, because I don't use those words. But, yeah. Better to train yourself away from that. But there's one thing when people are just sort of loud, when they need to blow off steam, and so they trash stuff. And then there are the people that they smash things so they don't smash people. And then there are the people that do that to menace. They try to be the biggest, baddest in the room, and they're not in control. And I mean, the problem with destruction of property is that you can accidentally injure someone, right? The whole Johnny Depp finger incident. No matter who you believe on that one, that was an intent to destroy property that ended up, destroying the tip of his finger. I don't see how a plastic phone could have done that. Or a folding door. But anyway, it's not harmless. It's not ideal. But I know some people who, on their absolute worst day started breaking stuff. It was not vengeful. It wasn't that Before He Cheats song. It was just somebody not knowing where to put things. And it was an isolated incident. And we move on. And then there's what she's describing, which is a pattern of behavior where the guy was... It's one thing if you break your own stuff. It's another thing if you break somebody else's stuff. If somebody's destroying your property out of vengeance or retaliation, that's abusive. And then there's the verbal abuse. And this is something I have struggled with a lot because, yes, I'm aware of trash talk and gaming and all that stuff. But I do think that people get conditioned to tune out things that do bother them. They believe they're not allowed to let it bother them. So it it festers, right? They just block the feeling, block the feeling, block the feeling, and it does real damage. And I do think, if people want to opt in to a trash talk environment, if everybody's on the same page, go for it. But I do believe people need to be able to set their own limits and boundaries on that kind of thing. And there is no place for it in, a loving relationship. She clearly didn't like being called those things. Some people, no kink shaming. Some people like being called those things sometimes, but she clearly didn't. And that matters. And some people say things when they're angry. Yes, that's true. We should always strive to be better in that way. But when it is an ongoing pattern of verbal abuse, broken every day practically, broke glasses, broke gates, slamming doors, called me stupid, useless, like practically every day. That doesn't mean literally every day. It was probably a bit of hyperbole, but it happened enough. And it's the stupid, useless fucking bitch, see you next Tuesday, right? That I know that word is more normalized in other parts of the world. For people in Los Angeles, that's very striking. You should not call a woman you allegedly care about. I don't believe it's appropriate. I shouldn't say shouldn't, but I don't believe it's appropriate to refer to a woman you're in a romantic relationship with that way. It's the same way I don't believe it's okay to say things to deliberately unman someone. There are just certain lines you don't cross in a loving relationship. And if you do, you have to recognize that doesn't just go away. Even if a person forgives you, they won't forget you said it. And unless you do active work to mend that wound, the wound festers. You have told that person what they mean to you and what you think is okay to do to them. And that doesn't just go away. That's a race to the bottom without active intervention and making it right. And we don't talk enough about that. We don't see enough of that in media because people who write television shows have a wealth of expertise to draw on regarding unhealthy relationships. They're not very good at writing good relationships. I've had multiple conversations today about how Hollywood can't write healthy relationships and create struggle and conflict in a healthy relationship between people who love each other. I think Superman and Lois does it well. I've recommended that show to everybody that brings that up. But yeah, the media is a really bad source for what a healthy relationship looks like. It's actively terrible regarding that. But that gives us our sense of what's normal or what's ideal or what's romantic or what's exciting, and holy crap, that's a problem. And this is where all the why did she stay with him, why this, why that, people shouldn't ask those questions because there are a million reasons why people of all genders stay with someone abusive. There are more reasons than there are people in those situations. And it comes down to by the time the really overt abuse begins, the person has been profiled and worn down. And people do this instinctively, right? It's not that somebody's a big criminal mastermind. It's that, well, you're primed. I had to learn that you're primed as children to accept certain types of abuse because it was normalized in the home. You don't know that it's not okay. You think that you have to just take it. Oh, that's just who they are. And you'll notice in those environments, the abusive people, oh, that's just who he is. That's just who she is. But you're not allowed to be who you are. That's a big marker. But then the person, all right, you put up with a bit of negging. You put up with the playful put downs, right? Oh, learn to handle criticism. Don't you want to be better? Chip away, chip away, chip away. Until they know they can push. They know they've softened you up. And then it gets worse and worse. And they tell you things like, oh, it's because I trust you. I can be my real self around you. I tell you what I really think. Of course, they tell you what they really think about you and then everybody else. And they don't have the conversations with everybody else. It's like, that fucking asshole and this, that. It's like, okay, go talk to them. I'm not going to do that. Well, why not? Because I need them for something. We don't see that as a red flag anymore because of hustle culture, but it's a red flag. If somebody is using someone, they use people. Period. End of story. That is a character point. And it's the slow chip away. And so then when you realize, no, this is a problem, I'm in over my head, then the self-blame starts with, I missed that signal and I missed that signal. And yeah, I knew that was a problem, but I thought with a little love they'd change, Yeah, I knew she was crazy, but the sex was hot. That kind of stuff. We can all roll our eyes and look back and go, what did you do? People do. Everybody has soft spots. Everybody, I hear so often, I want to give other people the chances I never got. And that's laudable, but what I tell those people is, you're not giving people the chances you never got because you weren't out to abuse anyone. These aren't the chances you didn't get. These are chances they don't deserve. And it's easy to say in retrospect, and you can only learn moving forward, but everybody always has blind spots. There's a number of things where it's like, well, this could go either way. And I'm much, much better now at putting the brakes on sooner. Partially because now that I sort of wholly run my own business, I'm not dependent on, higher ups and corporate structures. I have a lot more control of who I associate with. And that's done wonders for my mental health, let me tell you. But everybody has been taken advantage of, and people blame themselves. And so they shut down and they don't form new attachments because it always ends up bad. And they blame themselves and they stay stuck. And that person who did bad things continues to cause a good person pain through their own self-recriminations. And that, for whatever reason, I could be totally wrong, is what I see when I hear Ashley Johnson didn't want this story getting out. She's ashamed. And I'm speculating here. I don't know if it's true, but it's just a sense I get from the reactions. And because Ashley Johnson, everything I've seen of her indicates she's a good person. Probably takes too much shit. Obviously. But what choice does she have? She's an actress. She's relying on people to hire her and think she's nice and pretty and all that. All that stuff I don't have to bother with anymore. And that's part of the reason I got out of performing other than voice work and my own stuff. I didn't want to play that game anymore. I ended up in too many bad situations. But not only does she have nothing to be ashamed of here, she deserves to feel proud that she got her life back. But nobody feels that way in her position. Everybody feels shame. Everybody feels stupid. Everybody's like, oh my God, what was I thinking? All the signs were there. And I don't know what to do about that. It is part of the loss. It is part of the grieving process. But it also means that, I mean, he was extorting her over something, right? Extortion implies pay me or I'll ruin you somehow. And I don't really know how you ruin her, she's beloved. But obviously there was some, and some profiles of users are really good at making you feel guilty and telling you people would hate you if they knew this about you, and then they threaten to expose that, even though it's not true, but they convince you of it because they seem smarter or more worldly or stronger or more together or whatever. And so you take them at their word, you trust them, and they abuse that trust. And I suspect that's probably what's going on here. But yeah, I hope she heals from this. I hope she goes on, and I hope that some of this helps to using this concrete example helps other people that are in similar situations, because this is one of the worst things a person ever has to go through. So if you like this content, we do have people that I do one-on-one sessions with who need subsidized stuff. That's why I do the help support this channel at the end. Help support this channel, become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK, or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it, coffee.com/LeannaK. 6 people a month need support. And hey, if you want to sign up and talk this stuff out, I am here. I do have openings every other week. So thanks for watching this, and be well.